We're back with another episode of Shhh, we're in conversation. I'm with Rehana again, and I would like a brief overview of your week.
Well, Adil, this week was interesting. It was really a week of preparation for upcoming facilitation next week and a lot of follow up meetings post the Sariti Partner networking event. And just meeting a lot of people with different experiences, not necessarily going to go into the detail of who they were, but I think really struck in each conversation with people from very different life experiences and so forth, but all of whom have faced considerable setbacks, whether in their professional lives or their personal lives, and have found the inner resilience to navigate those.
So I think that's pretty important considering my life as well. I've had a lot of setbacks professionally, and I would like some insight into what those people may have learned from their journeys.
So I think, Adil, the first thing is I don't think your journey ever ends until you've taken your last breath. So, in fact, learning is literally a lifelong thing. And I'm not talking necessarily about formal learning, I'm talking about the learning that comes from the university of life. Things that one never anticipates. So people that I met this week shared about, losing a spouse in a motorcycle crash, or having an elderly parent diagnosed with dementia and the need that one feels to step in and assist the sibling who's actually taking the primary responsibility. Or another person that I met this week who was studying for her master's whilst she was going through the divorce, and the two things were running in parallel. And I think what struck me about the conversations this week is that we never really know how much someone we are meeting may be carrying in that moment or have carried in their lives previously. The common thread is really people who don't take adversity personally, people who think about how they use adverse circumstances to find the inner strength and resilience to move through it. Um, and for me, these conversations didn't start out about the personal. In many instances, the people I was meeting, we were meeting in a professional capacity, but the way in which the conversations went, we touched in moments on the personal. And I think this week, what really struck me was just so many people are dealing with things that we have no idea what they're actually dealing with.
So there's a notion I like to live life by, and that's always be kind. I don't always get it right, but I try my best. What do you think the importance of kindness plays in this life?
So, Adele, it's interesting. At the Standard Bank Global Leadership Center, when the Sariti event happened, right outside in the yard is this beautiful, big, be kind in a whole range of colors and so forth. And I find that for many people, it's easier to be kind to somebody else than it is to be kind to yourself. We are often so very hard on ourselves. And it's interesting the question you ask because, normally at the beginning of every year, I kind of select a word for the year. And this year, my word for myself is softening. Because I tend to be very harsh in my way of being. I tend to have very high expectations of everyone around me, including myself. And I think at a time when humanity is going through so much, kindness not only to yourself or to other human beings, but how we relate to the natural environment, how we actually utilize time spent in nature to rethink what is really important.
So I know you spent a lot of time in nature throughout your years, and why do you think that's vital to living in today's fast world?
So I think increasingly, as society has industrialized, as many of us work in environments where we may never see natural light for the day. Everything is artificial light. Everything is artificial heating systems, so you're not really feeling the cold of winter. You're not really feeling the beating sun of summer. It's very easy to get disconnected from natural rhythms, whether those are rhythms of the sun every day, rhythms of the moon in the month. And in fact, the room we're currently in, where we're shooting this piece, is actually modeled on Japanese philosophy called Shinrin Yoku. And Shinrin Yoku, which means forest bathing, was born from the idea that as people were rapidly, or as Japan was rapidly urbanizing, what came to the fore was that the more disconnected people were getting from the land, the more mental health issues they were facing. Now, I think, Adi, we live in a really interesting time because people are supposedly hyper connected through their devices, right? In any given moment, they're on social media, they can WhatsApp somebody. But in fact, globally, we're having pandemics of loneliness. In a world that is hyper connected, people are deeply, deeply lonely. And I think it's not just time in nature, it's time with others in which real and true human connection happens, is something very special. And in a world where everything moves so fast, carving out time for human connection is something that many people see as a burden. And I think this week, if I reflect, was actually a week of deep human connection with beautiful souls.
Thank you, Rihanna. I think that was quite insightful for today. We will catch up again next week on our episode of Shh, We're in Conversation.